On today's show, we have Jason Whateley, who competed at Rio in 2016, won silver in the 2018 Comm Games, and has since turned pro, had 9 wins and 8 of those knockouts. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thanks for having me, boys.
Thanks for coming on.
How you going?
Yeah, no, going good, mate. Cruising along, back in training now. So, all was going well. Just hoping that Melbourne can stay open and get the fight underway later in the year.
You were saying today's your rest day, but you're prepping for a fight next month?
Yep. Yeah. So in December, I'll be back fighting. Hopefully, all going well down here in Melbourne, obviously. It's a strange time, so, we have to hope that everything goes to plan. But at this stage, mate, that's the plan. 11th of December, back in Melbourne, and just very excited to be getting back in the ring.
For sure. From Rio to Comm Games at the Gold Coast, what was that transition like? And then from there, turning pro?
Going to the Comm Games was something that I really wanted to tick off the list. Everyone said after the Olympics, maybe turn pro there, and that's what a lot of the amateurs do when they go to the Olympics. They sort of go, there's not much more to do from here, so they turn professional. I'd actually missed 2 Comm Games teams. So I missed out on the 2010 team. I got a silver medal at the Nationals. I travelled with the Australian team to Cuba, and then had another fight against the guy who won. So the A and the B fight off again. And then the winner of that goes to the Commonwealth Games, represents Australia. So I ended up losing that second fight and missed out on the team in 2010. I then went again for the Commonwealth Games team in 2014 and lost in the final on a split decision to Jai Opatea. So I was pretty shattered about that. I then went on to make the Olympic team. But it was sort of something that I really wanted to cross off the list. And I didn't feel right turning pro and sort of not having finished what I started. I really wanted to make that Commonwealth Games team, especially being in Australia. And, I was just happy to tick that off the list. That's for sure.
Out of curiosity, because for someone who isn't a part of boxing, but watches it, I struggle to understand why. I guess it is cool representing your country, but in turning pro, there's the money. How do you hedge those two?
I think as like an athlete, all athletes sort of have their goals. I'm very goal driven. If I was doing it for money, I probably would have picked a different sport, mate, because it's a very small percentage make a lot of money in boxing. I love the sport. It's changed my life. I just love it. So for me, my goals always were at that time was to represent Australia. That was something that I really prided myself on, and I was very proud to be a part of the Australian team. So, that was always my goals, and that was what I was dedicated to be doing. So for me, it was, I didn't even think about it. And then, once I'd sort of ticked everything off the list, then it was time to turn pro. Now my goals have changed. I want to become world champion and do some big things as an individual. So, that's sort of where it differs there. And like I said, I'm very goal driven, and my goal at that time was to represent Australia and do the country proud.
That's awesome.
How different is like the training for the training amateur fights? Because obviously they're a lot shorter, the fight, shorter, fast pace. How different is the training and the adjustment you had to make when you did make that transition to pro?
I'm more of an endurance athlete anyway, so I didn't have to make too many big changes myself. Obviously, the sparring changes, that's probably the biggest one. For me as an amateur, I had to try and, get myself into that more of a sprinter mode and be able to start faster. Sometimes I can be a slower starter. When I do anything, when I run, I'm not a sprinter. I'm an endurance athlete. I'll just keep going. I can hit the same pace anything I do, and I'll just keep going at that pace the whole time. And fighting's the exact same thing. I can fight, from the first round to the 10th round the same way. So for me, it was harder probably in the amateurs trying to get that sprint going, especially when you're fighting 3 rounds. If you lose that first round, it's really tough, especially at the elite level. Like, it's hard to make rounds up when you're fighting the world's best.
100%.
So, the pros has been a lot more suited to me. I've enjoyed it. But the biggest change would be probably the sparring rounds that I do, and everything's probably a little bit more. Like if I do pad rounds, I have to do 10 rounds and 10 round sparring or 12 round sparring and all that, rather than, even in the amateurs, you're sort of doing 3 round sparring. Even if you're doing a big session, you might do 3 rounds or 4 round sparring, have a break, and then do 3 or 4 again. So you're getting used to that sprint rather than having a round off at the start to ease into it.
100%. And then, so like we was chatting just before, and Harry Garside has just said he's going pro. Is there anything that you felt you learnt from your transition from amateur to pro that, because I believe you're mates with him, that you're like passing off to him? Any wisdom?
Yeah, I've sort of, Harry's one of my best mates. Actually, Harry probably is my best mate. We're very, very close. He's like my brother. So, I've tried to give him.
We had so much fun chatting to him. I just remember getting goosebumps when we were chatting to him, just because he's so charismatic and just interesting.
Yeah.
Super fascinating. So it's really cool to see him do well.
He's a very interesting fella, that's for sure. He certainly is. He's an inspirational kid too. He's very inspirational. He sort of said a few times that he looks up to me, but it's definitely the other way around. I take a lot of motivation from watching the way he carries himself and conducts himself. He's the hardest trainer I've ever seen and the most dedicated person I've ever met in my life. So,
wow.
But leading into the pros, I try to give him as much advice as I can, and I did, with deals and, sort of explaining how the pro game works. And, but Harry knows he's a smart kid as well. Like, I've had him in all my corners, or most of them. When he's in the country, he's always in my corner at my fights. And, he's been around the game for a long time. He's been fighting since he was 9 years old, or boxing since then anyway. So the kid knows the game. But any advice that I have passed on to him, and I've tried to help him as much as I can. That's for sure.
That's really cool. What was the biggest thing that you learnt going pro? Was there anything that made you go, oh, hang on, this goes this way? Not any change in mental shifts that you had to make?
Probably the biggest things I've learned, I've sort of been a bit trial and error for myself as well, is just the business side of things. Professional boxing is more of a business rather than, the amateurs is just about, if there's fights on Sunday, I rock up Sunday and I fight. That's probably the good thing about the amateurs. There's always politics in sport, but there's less politics in amateur boxing. Like I said, you're just rocking up and fighting. All you got to do is win. That's all you got to focus on. Whereas the pros is a little bit different. There's more of a business. You got to get managers, promoters. You got to try and, there's a lot more stuff goes on social media. People bagging you. There's a lot more things you sort of have to deal with. So
does that get exhausting when you just want to fight?
Yeah, it can be. It can be, mate. I think, it can be very exhausting, but, it's hard. You just got to learn to be able to not take these things personally and just sort of, at the end of the day, mate, when people are what I've learned is if people are talking about you, especially negatively, you're doing something right. So, that's what you've got to try and think. Sometimes, mate, I haven't got the best temper, that's for sure. So a lot of times for me trying to keep my cool and just remember things like that, mate, if you were doing crap, they wouldn't be talking about you. So it's a good thing that they're hating on you. That's
so true. I mean, we're chatting about Jake Paul just before we started, but I said I want to bring it up during this chat because he's someone that a lot of people are hating on, and seems to handle it very well and sort of embraces it. What do you think about him in the fight game and entering the fight game? I mean, probably so many people have asked you, but
I have mixed feelings on it. I think any publicity for the sport's good publicity, and he's bringing in huge numbers. So it can't be a bad thing, can it? It just shows, I think, how society's become, though, that we're watching a guy who can't really fight that well over some of the best fighters in the world. He'll be bringing in more money than, some great fighters that I can't even name because people might not even know them. You know what I mean? So it's a shame that the guys who are really good aren't getting that notoriety and aren't probably making the money that he's making. I think it's a shame in that aspect, but at the same time, good on him. Like how if he can make the money and he's only bringing advertisement to the sport and he's bringing more eyes to the sport and he's bringing in a different crowd. So it can only be a good thing for the sport. It's just a bit of a shame that
he's sort of undeserving.
Getting that notoriety.
Yeah. Because I feel like boxing gyms will be busier now than they were 2 years ago before he started fighting. But he is also undeserving of the payday that he's getting compared to people that have been doing it for their career.
Yeah, that have been doing it their whole life. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly how I feel about it, mate. I've mixed emotions on it. I think, once again, at the end of the day, it's great for the sport. The more eyes he brings in, it's better for us. So it's better for the sport as a whole. And hopefully, eventually we can sort of put that into everyone makes a little bit more because there is more eyes watching.
Exactly, yeah. And so when you went pro, you had, I think, was it 6 fights up until the end of 2019, and then there was an 18th month hiatus. Is that right? Or was it 6?
Yeah, I had 7. So my last fight I had in December, I think it was 2019. I fought for the Australian title against the current Australian champion, Daniel Russell. Knocked him out in the first round, and then I was supposed to fight again for the IBF, I think the WBO regional titles in March against Ben Kelleher. And I think about a week and a half out from fighting, lockdown started in Melbourne and the fight got cancelled, which is a huge shame. And then I didn't get a fight again until April or March or April this year. So yeah, had a bit of a hiatus, and it was pretty tough without the sport, because then in Melbourne, obviously it was pretty tough with the lockdown last year, and I 100%. Didn't have the gym or anything like that either. So
what's it like? How do you stay motivated when you sort of may even be asking yourself what for, why train at that point in time?
It was tough, mate. I'll be honest. I think a lot of people sort of, pretending that it was all right down here and everything. But look, I struggled, mate, to be completely honest. I didn't do too well with it at all. Like I said to you before, I'm very goal driven. So I had no gym, and sort of was the first time that I'd sort of had boxing taken away from me. I've been competing at the highest level, consistently, monthly for how long now? 12 years or 13 years or something. So it was a strange time for me, that's for sure. So it was good to get back into it. I think end of last year or, the start of this year, really get back into it and get back in the ring and get fights back underway and, start to see the gym back open. Even though we've gone back into lockdown, I learned from my mistakes last year and kept motivated this time. And I've hit the ground running this time and I'm looking in good nick for this fight.
So are you setting different goals for yourself like this time around?
Yeah, this time around I was. Last year I sort of stopped training. I wasn't looking after my body very well. So when I did start back training, it was hell. It hurt. It hurt a lot. So I learned from that mistake and realized that I wanted to keep fit for, and keeping fit is also good for your mental state as well. So, I learned that last year as well. So I wanted to just keep an eye on that and just trying to set new goals in the fact that could be anything. Like I kept my strength training up, so I wanted to try and get stronger. So I had goals in my strength training and just try to change what my goals were instead of always trying to aim for that fight or big goals like that.
What was it adjusted to? Was it like wake up at? What were your goals adjusted to? Like also for the everyman, for Sam in Newcastle or whatever. Yeah. Is it saying just commit to waking up at 5 a.m.? Just get up 100%. And at productive hours.
Yeah, I think little things like that are always great, and also just writing them down and making yourself accountable for them as well. I think we can sort of do things, and if we're thinking about it, it's easy to just go past it and not fulfill that agreement that you've made with yourself. Whereas if you write them down and you make yourself accountable, I think that can really pay off as well, and it'll make you really try and stick to what you've said.
Are you then sharing them with someone else to hold you accountable, or does writing it down work
Yeah,
for
no, I
you?
probably will. Well, I live with my partner Sam, and she's really understanding and all that sort of stuff. So I'll normally show her anything that I sort of do. I'm pretty open with her that she'll see it, and that once again, the more people you tell, the more accountable you're going to be able to make yourself. So I don't think making it a secret is going to help you. It's being open about it, and that will be able to make you more accountable for what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, 100%. And then your first fight back this year, how was that? Does it feel different walking back into the ring?
Nah, it wasn't, mate. It was just like riding a bike back to it. Just felt like I was back at home again. It was really good. I was just stoked to be back in there and get the ball rolling and feeling like life's back to normal.
That's awesome. And then, because then after that, you fought on the Justice Honey Paul Gallen undercard.
Yep. Yeah,
and
that's
that
right.
was the second time you versed the name who I've forgotten, but
Victor Oganov. Yeah.
Yes, was that the second time you'd versed him?
Yeah. So what happened with that was we had another opponent lined up, and then this is where the politics sort of comes into boxing a little bit more. We had an opponent pull out due to injury. We then got another opponent lined up for that, and it was a heavyweight from New Zealand who had a really good record. I would have been giving away a fair bit of weight. It would have been, a good fight. But then he pulled out as well with injury. And then we sort of put the word out to anyone just to try and fill the card, because we really wanted to be a part of that show. It was a big show. A lot of eyes on the tally watching it. Once again, you brought up Logan Paul and that. You got Paul Gallen in there. Paul Gallen's a very tough guy, though. He's actually a very good boxer.
That was gnarly. That fight was gnarly.
I've done a lot of sparring with Paul, and he's actually very good. But because he's come from his rugby background, once again, he's bringing a lot of new eyes to the sport, which is great. But he is someone who does deserve any recognition he gets. He's tough as nails.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be a part of that because there was a lot of different eyes going to be on there. So it was very important for us to try and get a matchup on there, but we really struggled on it. Like, we couldn't get anyone. We put the word out to everyone in Australia and New Zealand. Obviously, with the borders shut, it was a bit harder to try and bring anyone else in. So it was really hard for us to get an opponent. There was a lot of money being offered around, and Victor was the only one that put his hand up. So that was a fight that we ended up with, and it was just good to get on that card and sort of be a part of such a professional outfit like that card was.
Is it always so difficult to find an opponent? I know two people pulled out injured, but where from someone else's point of view, there may not be that much in winning the fight or in taking the fight, because someone like yourself who hasn't lost yet is trying to move through the ranks. Is it too much of a risk to fight someone like you? How is it finding opponents?
Yeah, it can be very difficult, But that's why I have my manager. Like, all I have to do is rock up and train and then do my job on the night. But I'm pretty sure they have a pretty hard time getting opponents, and it can be difficult, especially that one. That one was really hard, and it would have been a shame to miss out on that. So I was glad to get on there. But these are the parts of the sport that I was talking about earlier, the business side of things, where things get a little bit more tricky than the amateurs. Like I said, you used to have tournaments in the amateurs. You'd rock up on Sunday, that's when we fight, and whoever's there is, it's a fight. Whereas in the pros, it's a little bit more different, and there's a little bit more politics involved in it. So, but that's part of the sport, mate, and that's the way it goes. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, one of the fascinating stories is when Anthony Joshua lost to Andy Ruiz. Was it 2 years ago now? I can't remember.
Oh, yeah.
But like, because he was Andy Ruiz, not much notice. I think 6 weeks after he just finished another fight and turns up.
Yeah.
It
definitely happens. Andy Ruiz is a great fighter. I'm a big fan of Andy Ruiz. He's very fast hands, and he can fight. That's for sure.
You don't expect it from him.
No. It definitely doesn't look it, but he can fight. That's for sure. He's got very fast hands for a big fella.
Yeah, you were saying that he's not doing much now.
I remember
saying
hearing
he's coming to Mexico?
after that fight that he it's kind of like he was happy. He's like he's achieved his goals. Like I just heard this on a different podcast where he started to put on a lot of weight and he started to get comfortable because he's like, but like you've done it, you've achieved your goal probably, and like where's there to go from there if you're not motivated to
Well, you do
defend
hear
the
him
job?
say the famous saying, with fighters, once they make all the money and become world champion, it's hard to get out of your silk sheets at 5 o'clock in the morning to hit the road to run. So I think you're right. I did read somewhere that he put on a fair bit of weight and he didn't train as hard for that next fight with Joshua, and he'd sort of was pretty happy with where he was. But I suppose with someone who's come from no money, imagine the money he would have got paid for that to be.
Oh yeah, you can't blame him at all.
Imagine the endorsements in Mexico as well after that.
Oh.
Like that could be even more than
he would be a god there.
Yeah.
But that I would expect is like the typical reaction from people. The ones who can then motivate themselves to keep on going after they've achieved that success. They're the unicorns, the ones who are just purely love what they're doing.
Manny Pacquiao might fit into that category because insane amounts of success, but he kept fighting. I don't know how many unretirements he's had, but now he's going for president or prime minister of the Philippines, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's just the mentality of a fighter. It's hard to give it away if that's what's inside you. If that's what you are, it's hard to give that away. It's very hard. You see a lot of fighters try and retire and always end up trying to come back and have another go. And it's it's easy for everyone on the outside to go, mate, just give it away. It's over. But if that fire's still burning inside and you still want to fight, it's very, very hard to stop it.
Why is that? Is that an identity thing?
Probably there's probably nothing outside of boxing that feels the same as in that ring when you're fighting in front of there's probably nothing that matches that. Is that what it is? Because I can imagine you'd become an adrenaline junkie after that if you had to stop fighting because you need that level of I don't know.
Yeah, there's no competition like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no competition like standing in the ring against another man and having a fight. There's just nothing like it. So it's something that I have to look at as well, and any fighter has to look at is how you're going to be able to deal with life after fighting. And it's one of them things that you're going to have to put plans in place because it is going to be tough, especially for guys who really love to fight. There's some boxers out there who are in it because they like, keeping fit and all that sort of stuff. And there's boxers out there that are fighters and they just love to fight. So they're the guys that have a little bit of trouble from hanging them up because, there's no competition like it when you're standing there with another bloke punching on, that's for sure.
So what's the camp like at the moment? 8 weeks out from, or 6 weeks out from December?
Yeah, it's been good, mate. Been good. I'm feeling really fit. I've been putting in some really good sessions and feeling good. My weight's coming down. So, so a normal day for me normally is I'll run in the morning, do some sort of running. So whether it be just a distance run, 6Ks or track work or hill sprints or something like that. And then afternoon, I normally do a big boxing session and then a little bit of conditioning on the end of that as well. I still work, so I run boxing PTs at the moment, outdoors PTs. But so I do PTs in between them, and then I do my training around that as well.
That's an insane schedule to
the
adhere to. I can't imagine how important sleep would be, especially during this time.
Exactly right, and diet. Trying to get your diet right. I could really feel that. If I have a day or something where I don't find my diet as strict as I should have, I'll feel that I'll be tired. I'll be knackered, especially if I miss sleep too. Sleep is very important, especially for your recovery.
Yeah. Is there anything you go to for your diet?
Proteins is the most important thing. I've got to make sure that I keep my proteins up for recovery, but trying to get your carbs in at the right time as well. And so I've got my strength and conditioning trainer. He does all my diet, so I just have to follow it, which is good, mate. I'm a simple man, so I just like to read it and follow it, and that's easy done for me.
Do you ever get any cravings or that Tim Tam looks pretty good right now?
Mate, my biggest craving is ice cream, so I always make sure that he puts the ice cream in there for me. Otherwise, I'm going to go mad. So he always chucks in a little paddle pop. I get a chocolate paddle pop at the end of the day because it's only 80 calories. So happy days.
That's awesome. I mean, for people listening, that's a great low-calorie ice cream they're trying to...
Yeah, that's right. Apparently, it has to be chocolate, though, which is spewing because I don't mind the rainbow one.
Oh, my God. The rainbow.
The actually caramel one, apparently, which
Yeah.
blew my mind when I found out it's
that.
caramel. No, I think
might
the
stay
rainbow's
away from it.
caramel. Rainbow's caramel, I'm pretty sure. Like, when someone told me that, and I couldn't believe it.
That's weird.
Like, everything I've been told was a lie.
This looks like a fairy threw up.
They've just chucked the different colours in to trick everyone. I don't like that.
Yeah, it's so deceptive. Do you take any protein powders or fish oils or any supplements?
I do take protein powder. So just after I train, I'll have a protein shake. But that's it. I'm not real too big on supplements, especially coming from the amateurs and being at the high level in the amateurs. You know, I always had a SADA, getting tested by a SADA and all that. So you have to be really careful. Like even protein powders, they recommend that you don't have if you're getting tested. So, but I've never really been big on supplements or anything like that. But my strength trainer says I have to have protein powder. So I have that. That's it.
Actually, on that note, I swear I saw something the other day that the WBC allowed a fighter to fight who tested positive to something banned. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I can't remember.
But that list is crazy long with the kind of things that you can't.
Mate.
I can't imagine trying to navigate through all that.
Yeah, that's why. Like I said, I'm a very simple man, so I'm not flicking through there and seeing if this has got that. I'd rather just stay away from it.
Yeah,
it's a simpler approach, and it seems like easy enough to do for. You've got
Because
someone planning out your diet and everything too.
The list is crazy. Like everything's in it. If you have a cold and flu tablet at the wrong time, done. You're gone.
Wow.
Like it's that strict because you have in competition, out of competition, and then you have to go through all the ingredients in each tablet and all that. So I don't even really take like medication. If I feel sick or whatever, I don't really have any medication. I just write it out.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Crazy
so how do you recover then? You have to just
That's
like day of the fight type shit. Are you able to take a Codral?
So recovery, like if I'm
no,
sick,
like if you're sick, yeah, like day of the fight, are you going to take anything or like no, we got to fucking ride
vitamins.
this?
I normally have vitamins if I'm feeling sick. Like vitamin C is probably one that I'll have and just smash heaps of oranges and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think there was another tablet someone gave me. Like if I'm sick a couple of weeks before, I might have, but it's more of a vitamin as well. Like it's an Armor Guard thing. It's called. But that's about it. Like I don't have too many. Well, cold and flu doesn't really get rid of it. It just sort of helps you. If you
it manages.
Yeah.
Feel less
shit. Get rid of the cold. It just makes you feel a bit better for an hour or so.
Yeah. Well, I guess that would help, but it's not worth jeopardizing anything. No. Like, what about going to restaurants though? Like, do you ever have to question a chef? Or like, I don't know, like,
what are you putting in the meat?
Yeah, why does this burger taste so good?
I'm not that strict on it, but you do read things like I saw Canelo when he got done with, I think it was clenbuterol or something he had in his system, and he blamed the meat. So I don't know if that's
bodybuilders have been using that forever.
Seems like an easy out. Like it was the taco I had. Like
yeah, the girl.
If we start looking at food, I'm in trouble. Yeah, but I don't know.
Well, there was one leading up to the Olympics. Shelby, someone was her name. She's a track runner for Team USA. Blamed a bad burrito as to why she tested positive. And it's possible to have it in this like weird meat that she was having, but not at the levels unless she had like 500 tacos or burritos. So everyone's like, maybe, but no.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that. I don't know. Surely. Yeah, I don't know about that.
It's very weird. What about like, how does your mental change as you get closer to a fight? Do you become more sharp or more, like, do you feel like more like a warrior, just like ready to unleash?
I think leading into the fight, like them last couple of weeks, I'm always exhausted. I'm really tired, and then
because you're depleting, shredding.
Yeah, and just you trained hard, like you're coming to the end of your 10 or normally I do about 12 weeks. You're coming to that end of that camp, so your body's exhausted, you're tired, everything's starting to get a little bit harder. But then that last week you start to taper off. So you back your training off a little bit. I don't do weight cuts super hard, so it's not like I'm completely depleted or anything like that. The last day is never fun, but I don't do it real hard. But then you start that last week, you're starting to feel great again, and by fight day, you feel fantastic. You feel 100% because you've gone from torturing your body basically, for lack of better words, for 10 weeks to then refreshing yourself and starting to feel really good. And that especially that last week, you start really focusing on what the task ahead of you, and going over tactics and plans that you've come up with your coach. You might do a lot of video analysis where I just watch him and take down notes and stuff like that. I do a lot of try and do a lot of visualization. Like once a night, I might sit there and just visualize the fight and how it's going to go. And
what's the first thing that you visualize, bringing yourself into it? Is there something that'll start that visualization session?
I'll try and just sit and quiet and I'll think about walking out. I'll literally just break the whole fight down from walking out, the fight, punches, just really trying to picture, punches landing, that feeling that I get in my hand when I land a good shot, all that sort of stuff. And then finishing off with obviously having my hand raised and how I react and all that sort of stuff. So really trying to get into it and in depth with it, and really just getting your mind to believe what's going to happen.
Is there any times where, and not to be pessimistic, but you think about losing and you're like, no, we got to wipe that?
Yeah, of course. There's always going to be doubt creep in. We've had to deal with that heaps of times, and you've just got to try and just cut that out straight away and then reset and start again. Yeah, and just keep going. But I think I've read a lot of fighters. We all have that doubt, you might even have dreams about it, because I do dream about fights all the time. You might dream that you lose. And so, a lot of little mind games happen, and you just got to try and be on top of that.
100%. Yeah. I got a question, but it's a complete change of direction. And you may not want to answer it, but sex before a fight, you personally, if not, general thoughts on it. Everyone talks about it, or just before big competition.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't bother me. Surely it'd be fine.
Yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't be going in there and putting in a marathon effort, but you get in there and have a bit of fun. Why not? Yeah, you come
listen
out and relax.
up.
Mate, there's actually a lot of different theories on it though. I think I read Muhammad Ali used to try and make sure he'd have it the night before just to make sure he's relaxed.
And Mike
Tyson wouldn't do it for a month or something, and that's why he was probably so angry. So
maybe that explains the bitten off ear. He was just going for something. The breeze switched directions or something. I don't know.
He's just angry to get him out of there so he can get back in the bedroom.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. There's so much conversation around it, and it goes both ways. Is it something that you'll plan, or is if it happens in the moment, I'm not going to say no? How does it go?
Mate, I tell you, yeah, I'll be completely honest with you. If the option's there the night before, I'm not going to say no because I'm fighting. That's for sure. I probably wouldn't even say no. I probably wouldn't even say no the day of. So
yeah,
I could probably sit here and go, oh no, I wouldn't do that. But let's be honest, I probably would.
No one would blame you for it.
You're only human.
But once again, I'm definitely not putting in any marathon effort, so
yeah.
I'm not worried about that either.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When picking a fight, and I'm sort of going back to it, but is there something you look for in an opponent when you're trying to build your record?
I don't, like I said to you, I don't really have to deal too much with that. I just sort of, mate, I'll fight anyone, anywhere. That's sort of how I've always been. And that's why I love the sport so much, because I am a fighter. I love fighting, full stop. So I'll fight anyone, anywhere. And I've always prided myself on that. It's up to my coach and my management who exactly I fight and what they think is best for my career going forward. So I just leave that up to them.
Yeah. That makes, he's just saying that, as he said before, he leaves it up to the management is mainly who picks the fights, because you'll fight anyone. that's just part of the mentality. I think that
Yeah.
kind of mentality it's what you should be if you like love fighting. Like you're not backing down to anyone, and you're not really thinking too hard about who you're going to fight next. Just
Well,
planned
I
out
was
by
listening to
someone
a
else.
podcast with the Nelk Boys. I don't know if you know them. They're American YouTubers. They had Jake Paul on, and they were just talking about what he considers when picking an opponent, because for him, there's so much to lose when it comes to picking an opponent. And there's not that many people that will offer more exposure than he has to offer going into that fight. So it's a big consideration. What about the next year? What's the next year look like for you? What's your goals?
Oh, it's hard to say at the moment with everything going on. I just want to get back into fight, mate. You know, if the world was a bit of a different place at the moment, we're back to normal, I'd probably have some more specific goals. But at the moment, I really just want to get back into the ring and start to get the ball rolling again, and try and back some fights up against each other, and try and get myself 5 or 6 fights the next 12 months or something like that. If I can get up to 14, 15-0 or even 13-0, mate, you're starting to knock on the door for some good opportunities. I see Jai Opetaya's fighting for a world title. If you can bring that back to Australia. Since I've turned professional, I've always wanted to fight with Jai, so that's something that I'd definitely be keen on. But, once again, everything's got to work. Everything's got to go to plan. But at the moment, for me, mate, I just want to get back in there and just start to get the ball rolling again and get some fights backed up on one another, like I said.
So that conversation probably won't start before you're like 13-0. Is that?
I'm not too sure, mate.
Yeah.
We'll just have to wait and see. Like I said, I don't know too much what will happen there. I've signed with a new promotional company who's a part of Jai's team as well. So hopefully we can get some sort of talk going and see what happens. But there's a lot going on before that actually happens. So, but at the end of the day, that these are the things that I need to look at, and they're the goals that I'm after. And I want to become world champion, and I don't want to be in the sport forever either. Like I said to you before, I'm a fighter, and I'd love to be. And if it was up to me, I would be in it forever. But unfortunately, getting hit in the head all the time apparently isn't good for you. So
that's what some of the people say. Yeah.
So yeah, I want to be able to remember my name in 10 years to come. That's for sure.
Who do you look at for inspiration? Is there anyone that you look up to or take advice from, or anyone you watch at the moment?
Do you know
You're saying
what?
like Mike Tyson.
I was talking about like who inspires me and who I would ask advice would be Harry. Like we were talking about before, Harry Garside. He's like my brother. He's probably the only person I'd ring and really ask for advice and, really take it in from him. That's just because I don't really watch a heap of other fighters. I really look up to him. I've spent a lot of time with him, and I've really been able to see the way he approaches, his goals and the way how dedicated he is. And, I find him to be quite inspirational. So I'm very blessed and lucky to have him in my life and be able to pick his brain about things and get some advice.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it seems like he's very good as well at getting out of his head when coming up to a fight. It seems like he's very mindful and self-aware. Is there anything you do leading up to a fight or at any time just to sort of remove yourself from boxing or from the sport just for a minute?
Not really that I can
Any
think
hobbies?
of. I'm very good at not thinking about it. Like I've learned, boxing has taught me how to deal with nerves and how to, be able to get away from that. Like you said, get out of your own head. So, if I've got a fight coming up, I'm very good at being able to go, well, there's no point getting nervous about it now. There's nothing we can do about it. Move on. So, I've implicated that in lots of ways in my life. If I've got something coming up that I'm a bit worried about, or if I've got something going on that's stressing me out a little bit, I'm able to use that in the same way as I would as a fight and just go, there's no point worrying about it. And as silly as it probably sounds, like just to be able to say that, I'm actually very good at doing it and just saying to myself, there's no point me worrying about it. You worrying, it's not going to help anything. Let's move on and keep going about our life and push forward. So that's probably the best thing that I do. I'm able to have them conversations with myself and get out of my own head and keep moving forward with what I need to.
It's a hard thing to do. Like most people have, I mean, we all have a lot of things to worry about, but
yeah,
most people aren't able to get out of their own heads. What would you say for someone who maybe isn't a boxer, but they don't know if they're going to get shifts at work next week or I don't know, just someone who's in their head because
any advice
whatever
to help people to manage their levels of stress and worry?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Look, I've had that sort of conversation with people before. I think I learned from just being, when I first started fighting, I was so nervous. The first 5 or 6 fights, you're really nervous. I remember my first fight, I couldn't even eat any food. My mouth was dry. I fought, I'd come from the country and I fought on a local show and it was 2 footballers. One was picked from one club, one was picked from another, and then we fought each other. So everyone in the whole country town sort of knew each other. It's that thing, like I was saying earlier, about trying to get more eyes on it. That's what the local tournament down there was doing. They were trying to get all the local community involved, and they did that by getting 2 footballers fighting each other. Mate, I'm from the country. Everyone watches the footy. Everyone knows everyone. So that was my first fight when I was 17 years old. I was the main event for that card, and mate, I was so nervous. There was people having bets on it. Couldn't even eat, and it was things like that sort of taught me to just be able to relax under that pressure and just get on with what you need to do. And there's no real point stressing too much. It's just, give yourself something to think about, as in a goal, or take your mind off it. Try to think about something else. Go and hang with someone that's a good person, your loved ones or your family or someone who makes you happy. I think that's the best way to do it sometimes is when you are feeling a little bit stressed, put yourself in a happy environment.
Yeah, no, it's good advice. And I guess by being in those awkward situations, you would get better at it naturally.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where a little bit of worry initially is like, it's okay because you're always going to feel that. But like learning that if you dwell on it, you're not going to fix anything. You'll just get more anxious and it'll get even worse. You just got to move forward. Yeah. I try to incorporate that kind of thing in my life. Like I'll have that initial worry, but then I'm like, if I keep worrying about this, it's just going to become overwhelming. So you've just got to put a plan in place and just go with it. And just
that's right. Especially if it's something like that is going to happen anyway. Like that's how I was. I knew I was going into the fight anyway, so there's no point me being worried about it. We're going in there to fight. This is what we're doing. We've trained for it. Let's go and do it.
Yeah.
So there's no point me worrying about it because it's going to happen. We're doing it. So, that's sort of how I've been able to deal with that is just, I've sort of pushed myself into positions like that. And it's just, trying to calm yourself down and having them chats with yourself and then, because it's happening anyway, so there's no point stressing about it.
That's exactly right. No, we'll go into overtime now. We put up a little poll on Instagram for people who wanted to ask questions. We had a few come through. We've selected 2. One of them's really weird. I thought I'd read it out. It's from Stuff Boxing.
Oh,
Does he?
Okay,
so I was like so confused. I'm like, it's probably an inside joke. You don't have to answer it. Does he change his undies or does he still wear one set from Monday to Friday? You don't have to answer that if you don't want to.
I'm actually a little bit sure that he's told everyone about that. They'll tell him that it's a secret. But I normally on the Wednesday afternoon, I turn them inside out, so that way it's all right.
I do that on holidays when I pack light, like you got to sometimes. We also
what an idiot.
Because we weren't sure whether to ask it.
It had to be an inside joke. We're like, it's got to be. It's got to be.
It's not even an inside joke. He just made that up. I don't know where he's come from with that.
We had a slightly more serious question, a much more serious question come through from Joel. He's asked what it's like to walk out in front of a crowd.
It's when you're fighting, you actually don't really notice it too much. You sort of block that out. when I walk into the ring, I'm quite an intense person. There's a difference between me and other fighters. Other fighters come in chilled, happy. I'm going in there for business and I want to fight. I've got the mentality that I want to try and hurt that person when I get in there. So when I'm walking to the ring, I don't really notice too much about what's going on around me. I'm just so focused on getting in there. There's a million things going through my head about what I need to do when I get in there. I actually have a funny story though. When I fought at the Olympics, I got booed by the whole crowd because I fought Brazil.
That's right.
When I fought over there, and I actually let it affect me. It was the only time I have let it affect me, and I really took a lot out of that fight and learned a lot because I went in there angry. And there's one thing you can't do in boxing is lose your temper. So when I was walking out, I looked at him and I loved it as I was walking out. Like I said to you, I'm a fighter. I love fighting, full stop. So as I'm walking out, I'm seeing all these people boo me. I'm looking at them laughing, and I was like loving the moment. But as I'm walking in, it was just firing me up. I'm going, when I get in there, I'm going to kill this guy in front of all these people. I'm going to kill him. So I've got in there and I'm trying too hard and, making, it's the top 18 in the world when you're at the Olympics. It's the best of the best. You're at the pinnacle of sport. So you can't lose your temper and just start throwing punches like I was, because they're not going to land. And if you miss punches at that level, you're going to get hit. So I lost the first round quite comfortably over there. And then it was really hard for me to come back from that. So that was something going on in the crowd that I really, that experience, I really learned a lot from it, as not to let the crowd affect you at all.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Jason. Where can people find you, follow along?
Follow me on Instagram, on Facebook. We've got Twitter as well. So I think it's J.Whateley _boxer on Instagram. So jump on there and give me a follow.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been really cool to chat to you. And good luck for your fight in December on the 12th.
No worries. Thanks for having me, boys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you, boys.